Hi, it's Jessica, and I'm going to do a video tutorial for you today on how to make this adorable beaker-shaped card. This is actually an SVG file that I purchased from svgcuttingfiles.com. You can purchase it there still on their website, and I just thought it was so adorable. So I'm going to make a Valentine's Day card with it. So it's got the cute little face. The file actually comes with the card base, that white piece with the face and the lines, and the little pair of glasses. That interior piece I actually made myself. So I did that using Design Space for the Cricut, and I did the sentiment which says, "We have great chemistry." I thought that was really cute for a Valentine's Day card. That wasn't quite as traditional as some of the other ones that I could have made, so I thought that'd be really cute. So basically what I'm going to do, I have two there, but I actually only made one in the video. I made the second one separately later. But I'm going to use this background stamp from My Favorite Things. It's called Typewriter Text. And this background stamp is 6 by 6, so it's great for doing an entire card front. Basically what I will do is apply watermark ink or embossing ink to the background stamp, and then I will lay my card front on top of it to get the ink onto my cardstock. And then I will use those two distress ink colors that I have above to distress ink the entire front of the card. And when I do that, after I have heat embossed, it will actually leave all of that typewriter text white, and then my image will be red and pink around that. So there's my Versamark watermark ink, and I use Ranger's embossing powder, and that's just the white. And I will link to all the supplies that I use in the description below. So there I'm going to ink up my background stamp with the Versamark ink, just making sure that I get really good coverage. I looked forever for my anti-static tool. So I have a powder tool that helps me make sure that, if I have fingerprints or anything like that on my cardstock, that it won't, that the ink or whatever, the embossing powder, won't stick to it when I go to heat emboss. However, I could not find it, so I was hoping that I would get really lucky and that I wouldn't have any issues with my sticking, and that actually did work out. So normally I would have used the anti-static powder tool, but I couldn't find it. So that means I need to clean my craft room, I think. So there I've got the ink all on the cardstock there. You really can't see it because it's clear. Once I start putting the embossing powder on it, you will start to be able to see the text there, and it's just a bunch of letters all lined up, just repeating. I thought that was a super cute background stamp, so that's the one I chose to use. And you can see that I have a little container with my embossing powder in it and a tiny little tasting spoon. Now I got this idea from Jennifer McGuire, and she is amazing. She's my craft organization idol. She has all the great ideas. So if you are interested in finding out ways to store your craft supplies, she is the person to go to. Be sure to check out her videos. So I'm using my little tasting spoon over a coffee filter, also an idea from Jennifer McGuire, to just contain the mess. I am known for making a huge mess with my embossing powder, and that coffee filter really helps, and they're super duper cheap, so that's always awesome. Then I have my heat tool here. I'm going to use the heat tool to emboss so that all of that just kind of, it essentially melts it. And then once it is melted, you can wipe right over it and the embossing powder won't come off anymore. Now I should have waited a little bit longer. My heat tool wasn't quite hot enough when I turned it on, so it took me a little longer to get the results that I wanted. So it's probably better to let the heat tool run for just a little while before starting to try to put it over your embossing powder. But eventually it does the trick. It just takes a little bit longer than it maybe needed to. So I'm just using that heat tool, and you saw a second ago there I did hit the back with the heat tool also. My paper was warping a little bit from the heat, and if you hit the back it kind of helps minimize the amount of warping. So there I have my embossing powder all done. I rubbed it just to make sure I didn't have any loose powder, which I didn't. And then it was all set and ready to go. Now I have my distress ink, and I used two colors that I thought would go nicely together. I didn't want a full coverage. I just kind of wanted some splotchy and fun pattern with the distress ink. So I chose Worn Lipstick for my first color, and you can see I'm just applying that. I start off of my cardstock on the craft mat so that I don't get any really big impressions of the foam circle, and then once I have most of that initial ink off, then I can kind of go ahead and blend right there on the card. I do like also that the outside of the card is darker, so you get the more concentrated ink around the edges, and especially for this particular card I thought that looked really cute. So now I'm switching colors, and I've moved on to the barn door color of distress ink, and you can see I have a separate foam pad for each. I don't have a separate tool for each color, but I do have a separate foam pad, and I like to do that because I don't want to get the other colors mixed together, and so I like to have them separate. So there I'm going ahead and blending my barn door color, and just kind of leaving some white spaces, and just where I thought it would look good, I kind of went back and did a darker concentration of the color just here and there. There's no real pattern or rhyme or reason to this. I just sort of did what I thought would look cute. You can certainly do this however you want. I know some people prefer a more full coverage, but I really liked the way that that looked. With the whole science theme, I thought it would be cute, kind of like an uneven concoction of who knows what. So now you can see I have my glasses die cut out. Like I said, I did this with my Cricut, and they are going to be heat embossed as well. So what I have here is a sheet of typing paper, and now I have my Ranger Black Embossing Powder. I'm taking that same Versamark watermark ink, and I'm just dabbing it on top. So I want the entire surface of my glasses die cut to be covered in embossing powder. So I just went ahead and dabbed or rubbed that ink right onto it, and then I'm applying the embossing powder. Now I only did half at a time because I still wanted to be able to have something to hold on to when I was doing my heat embossing. So I did about half or a little more of the glasses at one, in the first shot, and then I will go back and do the second half next. So you can see as it heats, the embossing powder melts, and I get that really cool shiny look to it. And I just thought that looked so much better than having just a plain piece of black cardstock. It gives it a lot more dimension. So here I am again doing the other side for the Versamark ink, and then with the black embossing powder, I've got my coffee filter there to catch my mess. And then that is just a piece of typing paper underneath that I used. I used it earlier in the video, which I didn't mention at the time, but I used it to cover up my little card front so that I could press down onto the background stamp and not get my fingers sticky or inky, and also just to make sure that I got all of the smooth coverage from that typewriter text. When it's really intricate, I like to be able to smooth it out. So there I've got my finished product for my glasses, and they look super cute on his little face. So I'll go ahead and assemble the card after I clean up my mess. I am notorious for leaving black embossing powder everywhere, so I've been trying to do better about cleaning it up right away. So there I have my tape gun. It's the Scotch ATG 714. Like I said, I'll link to all my supplies in the description below, but I'm just applying a generous amount of adhesive to the card front. And I did get a little bit in that open area, so I just kind of rubbed it to get it off of the part that would show through. So once I've done that, I did go ahead and adhere it to my card front. And once I got that where I wanted, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do as far as embellishments. He obviously needed something other than his glasses. So I decided to actually go ahead and add a ribbon. And then here you can actually see before I did that, I went back with some Ranger Multimedia Matte This is great for an adhesive for tiny little things, and I actually have a fine tip applicator on it with a special lid I bought on Amazon so that I could get into really tiny areas and not have a big blob of it. The great thing about this is that it actually dries clear. Or, you know, it basically just disappears. I haven't had any problems with, you know, sometimes you'll get like a glue blob and it ruins the front of your project, and I'm a perfectionist, so I end up having to start over and redo the whole thing. So that's a great product to have on hand. So as I said, I was going to do the ribbon, and then I decided to go ahead and attach the glasses so I would know exactly what it was going to look like when I added the ribbon and as far as where to place it. So again, I'm using that multimedia mat from Ranger to adhere this. Now, because it has the embossing on it, it wasn't sticking very well. So I actually just set my embossing powder container right on top of it and let it sit for a second. And then I didn't have any problems after that. So you'll see me do that here in just a second. And there it is. So once that sat for just a minute, I went ahead and made sure that it all looked okay, and then here I go deciding to put my ribbon on. So I had a super adorable gingham check ribbon that I wanted to use. I just adore these ribbons. They're so cute, and I have them about every color you could think of. So there I cut the amount that I needed, and here I have a fork. This is the best way that I have found to tie perfect ribbons every time. So I use this fork all the time for every single little ribbon that I tie, and they come out perfect and super adorable. This works for me. If you are a good ribbon tyer, by all means, you do that yourself, but I am awful at it, so the fork is my savior. So then I went ahead and cut the little ends. I've got a perfect little super adorable ribbon there that I can attach to my project. So now I have a little tape runner, and I think this one is glue dots. That tends to work pretty well for my ribbon when I try to adhere that to things. And I got a little bit on my craft mat, but now I'm ready to adhere that to my card base. And once I got it positioned where I wanted it, I did go ahead and trim off the excess. Now, sorry that I did go off camera a little bit here. I was trying to make sure I didn't cut my card when I was trimming off the excess there. So I'm a little out of the frame. Okay, so now I've got my ribbon trimmed, and I need to decide where to place my bow. I thought it looked super cute over there in the corner. And so I went ahead and used that multimedia mat again and used that to adhere the bow. Now I did have to hold it there for a little while in order for it to be able to stick, but eventually it did, and I kind of fluffed up the edges of the bow there, and it looks really cute. So these little guys are actually made from perler beads, you know, the little things that you melt into shapes. I just thought this was the coolest idea ever. I saw on Pinterest, I think, ages ago that people were doing this, and they were melting these perler beads into enamel dots. And you can get like thousands of perler beads for, you know, $2 or $3 or something crazy like that. So this was a much more cost-effective solution for me when I like to use them so much. So I basically just melted them down into little lumps, and there you have it. So I have them in tons and tons of colors, and these ones, it's like a little red and white pinstriped, and then just 2 red solid ones is what I decided to go with. Now I'm using my little QuickStik to pick up the enamel dots, and then I'm using Glossy Accents to adhere them to the card. Since I had a little bit of trouble with the multimedia mat sticking onto the embossed areas, I went ahead and used the Glossy Accents because that seemed to work a little bit better. Now I have my inside panel that I'm going to go ahead and adhere. I just applied again a generous amount of my tape runner and stuck it to the inside. You will see I had a little bit of trouble getting it exactly where I wanted it right at the beginning. Luckily, I was able to pull it off and reposition it. Sometimes I'm not so lucky and I rip my whole project and I have to start over. which is always extremely frustrating, so I was very glad that I was able to reposition this one easily this time. So there I have my interior panel all set to go. Now you can add a message on the inside, but it just says, "We have great chemistry," and that is a super cute Valentine's Day card. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this card tutorial video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this in the future. Also, be sure to follow me on social media at A Card Days Work on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks so much and have a great day.